Okay. Thank you for inviting me here. And this is a subject which is very close to my heart, because I think that probation is a system which is highly underutilized in our country with great potential, which can really bring about a change in our criminal justice system. It can, lead to the reduction of overcrowding of our prisons, and also help in, reducing the criminalization of offenders who could benefit from what probation is all about, and reduce the load on the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, across the country, it is not being taken with the same kind of seriousness that it should be taken up, and we are definitely suffering because of that. Happily, I would like to say that Kerala is an exception, and Kerala has been making great strides in the last few years to revive probation, and this internship program is, I think, one such step which the probation department in Kerala has undertaken to see how probation system can be revived. And the involvement of active young citizens and volunteers in the probation system is, I think, a very good step which one should applaud. I've been asked to talk about the role of the probation officer in the rehabilitation of offenders, and so I'm going to limit my discussion to that particular topic. Who essentially is a probation officer? We should start with that question. A probation officer is somebody who is appointed as a government officer, who is technically seen as a friend of the court, an officer and a friend of the court, and whose job it is to identify people who can be released on probation, and once they are released on probation, then to help them rejoin the mainstream of society. This is, in short, what a probation officer's role is all about. And in terms of the kind of skill sets that a probation officer should possess, I have no hesitation in saying that all probation officers should be trained social workers, because social work teaches you all those values, knowledge, attitude, and skills which are required when it comes to working with people. And especially when you're talking about people who have broken the law, or who have deviated from the norm, the so-called norms of society, how does one negotiate between society on one side and the individual and his or her family on the other side? And this is something that a social worker is trained to do. And therefore, probation officers should all be trained social workers. Given that as a starting point, let me look at how does one work with people who are defined as offenders or as alleged offenders. Because when you're talking about under trials, that's when you start the work as a probation officer. At that point of time, the offense against them is not yet proven. They are still there as under trials, and the case is still going on in court. And it's only when the person's guilt has been proved that the role of probation comes in, because that is when the judge or the magistrate concerned will or may ask for the report of a probation officer, which in other words is called as the pre-sentence investigation report, or sometimes is called as the social inquiry report. And therefore, this is where the role of the social worker or the probation officer comes in. Now, in order to do the job, I mean, what is the job that is expected of a probation officer? One is, as we all know, is to submit a social inquiry report or a pre-sentence investigation report when a judge or a magistrate calls for the report of a probation officer. And two is, if the person is released on probation, then to try and help that person to get rehabilitated or to go back and join the mainstream of society. So the work is into two parts. One is to make an assessment about whether a person is fit to be released on probation or not. And two is, if the person has been found to be fit to be released on probation, then to see how to help that person to get back into the mainstream of society. Now, in order to do this, if we are looking at the whole first part of making an assessment about whether a person is fit to be released on probation or not, one should first understand the journey of an offender. One should ask questions like, how and why did somebody end up in prison or end up in being arrested for the violation of a law? So you've talked about their economic condition, you've talked about their social surroundings, you've talked about their psychological state. Is there anything else that you can think of?
Lack of legal awareness.
Okay, lack of legal awareness. So what we are trying to say here is, you look at the population which is there in prison, for example, and you will find that 80 to 85% of people who are in prison come from marginalized sections of society. So Dalits, tribals, OBCs, Muslims, 85% of the prison population comes from these groups. And I'm not saying this on the basis of anecdotal data, but I'm talking on the basis of data that is provided by the government of India, which is the Prison Statistics India report, which is published every year. If you look at the demography chapter in demographic details of people in prison, you will find that 85% are from these sections of society. Okay, that is one fact for us to look at. Okay. Then if you look at the educational background, you will again find from the Prison Statistics India report that nearly 30% are not even literate in the prison population. Nearly 30%, around 27 or 28% are not literate. And an equal percentage, that is nearly 30%, are people who have not completed their 8th standard or 10th standard of education. And not more than 10% would be, or 15% max. I don't remember the date statistics offhand, but roughly what I remember, 10 to 15% max are people who have completed beyond 12th class. So that is as far as the educational background is concerned. Now let us look at the income background. And here again, though there is no data to support this, 80% would be those who family income is falling in the bracket of either poor or even what we can call as BPL families. The BPL families may not be as many, but definitely those who are, you cannot call them as even lower middle class. That is the category when it comes to the income background. Then one looks at the age. If you look at the age background, you will find that 60 to 65% of the prison population are those who are below 30 years of age. Okay, so what is the profile that one is building up here? That a person who you find in prison is likely to be coming from a marginalized section of society, likely to be coming from a lower economic strata of society, likely to be coming from poor educational level of having poor educational status, and likely to be young. Okay, which means in the age group of 20 to 25 or maybe 30 years of age. Okay? Now, if this is the picture that you are getting, again, if you look at women, now women again, the indicators would be worse compared to men. The education level will be worse, the income level would be worse, the social category would be again worse than what is there in the male category. The only thing where the women, in the case of women, it would be different is age. In the case of women, there would be a lot of older women also who are in prison. Especially women who have been arrested for the murder of their husbands, or women who have been arrested for female infanticide cases, or women who have been arrested along with men for committing certain kinds of offenses, or women who have been arrested in cases of crimes against women like dowry death cases, or domestic violence cases, or 498A cases, etc. So other than that, you will find that both men and women are, you can find that there's a certain kind of a profile from where they are coming. So naturally, you're getting a question that's coming up in your mind. Why is this so? Why is it that such a large percentage of the prison population comes from this kind of a background? And then that takes you to the story that there is obviously some kind of a journey that is happening that is leading people into certain kinds of vulnerable situations, which in turn is probably leading them into criminal or deviant behavior. And we as social workers should be able to and make an attempt to understand that journey. Nobody becomes an offender overnight. Okay? Even when you talk about a person who picked up something and hit somebody, and that person died in an instant, in a moment of rage or in a moment of anger, that moment of rage or that moment of anger is not something that happened overnight. There was a build up to it. So say, for example, a lot of women who end up in prison for the murder of their husbands, you will find that they have been arrested for the crime that has been committed was in a fit of rage. Okay, that the woman picked up something and hit her husband, or she picked up a knife and she attacked him or something like that, and then, or she hit him and he fell or something like that, and then this person died. Okay, but why should a woman suddenly do it without any kind of provocation? Okay, you will find that there is a history behind it, and that history is that woman must have suffered for years together at the hands of that man, either as a victim of domestic violence or as a person who was having various kinds of extramarital affairs, or was somebody who was unemployed and he was an alcoholic, or was a dysfunctional person, suspicious man who's constantly taunting the woman about her not being able to, not allowing her to go out of the house, suspecting if she's going to work that she must be having affairs with other men, etc., etc. And this kind of a thing can lead to a situation where at one fine morning there is a fight, or usually it's a night, not the morning, and in that fight she picks up something and she hits him and he dies. Okay? So any kind of offense, first thing that we need to look at is what has been the trajectory and the journey of that person. And how are you going to know that journey of that person? It is not going to come to you just by asking that person, okay, what is the crime that you have been arrested for? And why did you commit that crime? Do you think you're going to get any answer to that? And if you're going to get an answer to that, do you think it will be an honest answer? No, no. I'm going to ask you to do a short exercise just now. Think of an incident in which you were involved, some incident in which you were involved, where you did something which you should not have done. You did something which, in hindsight, you think you should not have done. Like maybe telling somebody a lie, or cheating somebody, or avoiding a situation, or doing something which was morally wrong, or some incident or event or action that you have done which according to you should not have done. Just think about it. I'm not going to ask you to reveal that event, so don't worry. Okay, can you think of something like that? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody in this classroom who is saying, I have never done anything which I can consider as wrong? Is there anybody like that? Because I want to meet that person. Everybody is with me on this? You've thought of a time or an incident? I'm giving you 2 minutes to think. Take 2 minutes. Please raise your hands if you have thought of something like this. Except for Renita, I want everybody else to raise their hands because she's not here in the classroom as a student. Everybody has thought of an incident? Okay. Now, my next question to you is, why did you do what you did? Was there a reason behind it? Was there a reason behind what you did? Yes or no? Just tell me. Was there a reason behind what you did?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All of you agree that you did it for a particular reason? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everybody's saying yes. Okay. Did you achieve the objective for which you did what you did? Even if it is temporary. Was your objective served? For that moment, you did something for a particular reason and that objective was served. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
It was served.
Okay. So, according to you, it was a rational behavior. Yes or no? It was a rational behavior. You did something because you thought that is the best way to deal with this situation. Isn't it? And you also maybe thought that there is no other way to deal with this situation. This is the only way to deal with this situation in the given circumstances. Am I right or wrong? Correct? Later on, you may think, "Arey yaar, I should not have done this. Maybe instead of this, I should have done something else." You know, it's possible that it may have had some consequences, which later on you might feel that, okay, this was not necessary. You know, I have unnecessarily done something which has had other kinds of consequences. But when you were doing that, you did it for a reason. You achieved to some extent or to a larger extent the reason why you did what you did. Okay? Right? But you did something which is termed as wrong by society. Society, according to societal norms, that was wrong. That was incorrect. Okay? So we are told from childhood, don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. But we often lie. Isn't it? Why do we lie? Because it serves a purpose. It helps us to deal with certain situations. Right? Even though we know that we are not supposed to lie, but we find reasons to do it. This is not a moral science class going on. Huh? So please don't feel, what is this person coming and doing to us? Okay? I'm just having a conversation with you. Now you think of the person with whom you're supposed to be working, who is a so-called offender, and you are a social worker or a probation officer. So you have to assume that this person has done something which is supposedly wrong, or maybe is alleged to have done something. We don't even know if he has really done it or not. He has either done it or he has allegedly done it. And my job is to try and understand why or how he did it. Not actually how so much, but why. The reasons for it. Okay? And that is something that you will not understand in one discussion or one interview. It may take a lot of time. Okay? But as a social worker, as a probation officer, my job is to first try and understand what is this behavior that this person has engaged himself or herself in, and what could be the possible reasons why this person has done what the person has been alleged to have done. Okay, how are we going to find all this out? Do you think if you ask the person, like, tell me why you did what you did, you think you're going to get an answer? Very rarely you'll get an answer. 9 out of 10 cases, you won't get the correct answer. Because if I ask you the same question about something you have done, you will also not tell me. Why should you tell me? Why should you tell me? Who am I? And what are you going to get by telling me the reasons? I have to, yes, Vinaya says that you have to win the confidence and trust of the person. Correct. I agree with you. Yeah. So if you want to win the trust and the confidence of the person, then it is obviously something that is not going to happen overnight. And even after you win the trust and confidence of the person, it is not necessary that the person is going to tell you everything. You have the trust and confidence of your friends, but do they tell you everything? No, they don't. They will only tell you what they think is useful from their point of view. There are so many facts and things that are in your own life which you have not told anybody. They are your own secrets. Isn't it? Right? You will tell only if you think that by telling I'm going to get some benefit out of it. Either I'm forced to talk about it or there is some reason why I want to talk about it. Even if it means unburdening yourself and you're very stressed about it, so you want to talk to somebody. So you have decided to talk about it because you think that by talking to somebody, you're going to feel better. Okay. So don't assume that just by earning somebody's trust and confidence, they're going to tell you everything. And this is one of the first things that we as social workers confront, because we are constantly trying to find out whether the person with whom we are interacting is telling us the truth or not. My suggestion would be, don't get into that racket at all, trying to find out whether the person is telling me the truth or not. The person may or may not tell you the truth. That is not the point. But what I need to find out is, what could be the possible reasons or factors which may have led a person to offend. Okay? We are not here to find out whether a person is innocent or guilty. Whose job is that? Whose job is it? The court. Let the court do its job. Okay? You are not a judge. You are not the police. It is the job of the police to arrest and prosecute the suspected person. Even police doesn't know whether the person has committed the offense or not. They have collected some evidence and they suspect this person has done it. They put all that evidence together in the form of a charge sheet and then they produce it in court. Whose job it is to find out whether the person is guilty or not, based on evidence of the prosecution and based on evidence given by the defense. The judge is going to find out whether the person is guilty or not, and even the judge is not sure. Because the judge is supposed to convict a person only if he finds the evidence is beyond reasonable doubt. That means even if he has a little bit of doubt in his mind or her mind, they are not supposed to convict the person. They will say discharged or acquitted due to lack of evidence. So they may be pretty sure, but they're not 100% sure. And if they're not 100% sure, then they are supposed to discharge the case. Acquittal is when they're sure the person is innocent. But discharge is when you discharge the case because of lack of evidence. So even when they convict, there are so many cases where lower court convicts a person and high court acquits the person. You've heard of these kind of cases? Lower court has convicted, even passed a death sentence, and the High Court has acquitted the person, or the Supreme Court has acquitted the person. We recently had a case like that, which I read in the papers. Person was given death sentence in a case, and Supreme Court acquitted that person. Right? So nobody can be sure whether a person has done the crime or not, and it's not our job to find that out. But it is our job to try and find out what could be the possible factors or mitigating factors which has led the person in the path in which the person lands up today in front of me. This person is sitting in front of me. I have to file this person's social investigation report, and I need to find out what could be the mitigating factors which has led this person to this point of time, at this point of time. Okay. Now, what are the things that I will need to do in order to find this? One of the most important tools that is available with a social worker is the tool of a home visit. When you go for a home visit, you visit the family of the person. I'm going there to find out whether the person has committed the offense or not. So I will not like to use the word background check. Okay, but I would like to say, I want to find out the social economic situation in which the person is living and came from. How will I find that out? I will go to his house or her house of family members. I will go and meet, their neighbors, if possible, with the consent of the person whom I am representing. I will not do it without their consent. I will take their consent and say, in order to file this report, I need to meet your family and I need to meet your other people around you. Are you okay with it? Otherwise, I cannot file a report. So it's up to you. If you don't allow me to, make a home visit, then I cannot submit a report to the judge. So if I have to file a report, I have to make a visit to your family. I have to talk to your family members. I have to maybe even interact with your neighbors. You tell me who I should talk to. You tell me the names of people who you think understand you better. I will go and meet them and I will talk to them. My job is not to go and spoil your name in the area. Okay, by going and asking people what kind of a person was he, and different people will say different things. That won't serve the purpose. Remember, I'm not going there to find out whether he has committed an offense or not. That's not my job. That's the job of the judge. But I want to find out the social, economic, political, cultural factors which have led this person to do whatever he or she may have done. So I will ask this person saying, I want to meet your family members. I want to meet other people who you think understand your perspective better. Tell me their names and addresses. I'll go and meet them. It could be an employer. It could be a friend. It could be a relative. It could be a close family member, like a wife or a husband or a mother, etc., etc. Okay. When you do that, when you interact with this range of people, you will end up having some kind of an impression about the life of this person. Okay. So that is on one side. The second is you will also interview and talk and interact with that person, isn't it? You will try to allow that person to express whatever he or she wants to express about their life, about their situation, about the factors which led to the incident that has happened, etc. Okay? So we are doing this in order to understand the life journey of the offender. That is the first part of our work. How do I understand the life journey of the person? Okay. Any questions up till now? Correct. If I tell the entire truth to me, if you tell the entire truth to me, I may get biased against you. Okay. Or you might think that if I tell this person everything in the true, whatever happened, this person may turn against me. I want you on my side. I don't want you against me, right? So it's the same for everybody. So please assume that again, I'm going back to the question. I'm not there to find out the truth or otherwise. I am only trying to understand what could be the factors and what could be the overall socio-economic situation that may lead a person towards this path. So my job is to focus on the surroundings, the social environment, the economic situation, the employment status, the history, the background, all of that, but not about the incident per se. I'm not there to find out about the incident, what has happened. And this is a great temptation that we have as social workers or probation officers. I want to find out if he has really committed the act. And this would be especially true in serious offenses. Like if the person is arrested in a case of rape or is arrested in a case of murder, then you really want to know, has he really done it? Okay, but you have to resist that temptation. That is not your job, to find out whether the person has done it or not. Your job is to find out what is the background, what is the socio-economic circumstances, what is this political, cultural, social, economic, everything, all of that. Why? Because you want to find out what are the chances of this person being able to return to society as a contributing member of society. As far as the offense is concerned and the punishment that judge is supposed to give, leave it to the judge. Let the judge do his or her job. Okay, the judge will grant probation only if they think that this person is deserving of getting probation. Your job is to only talk about and give information and a submission to the court about what are the chances of rehabilitation of this person, irrespective of the offense that has been committed. That's not your job. Okay, Vinaya has asked a question again. Good question again. Difficult to be non-judgmental, but that is the challenge, no, for us as social workers. And that non-judgmentalism will come when you start questioning some of the things that you have done in your own life. Okay, non-judgmentalism will come when you question and challenge things that you or you see your family members doing and how you justify that. Okay, and I know that it is very difficult. It is humanly very, very difficult. But that is the training that we have to get as social workers. That we are, and again, I want to bring about one, I want to talk about one a very nuanced difference. When we are trying to interact with a so-called offender, my job is to understand why he or she has done what they have done, but not to justify it. There is a difference between understanding why somebody does something and justifying why somebody does something. You are not going to justify that person's behavior. You're not saying that if I was in his place, I would have done the same thing. That is justification. So my answer to that question of is it humanly possible to be non-judgmental is that we are not there to justify that person's behavior, but we are there to try and understand that person's behavior. Why? Because we are in this profession. Otherwise, we should leave this job, go somewhere else. Okay? We know, we have knowingly entered this profession. We have knowingly entered the profession of working with offenders. Now you are not going to be now making differentiation saying, I will work with good offenders and not bad offenders. Then what is your definition of a good offender? What is your definition of a bad offender? Okay, then you will start making categories. I will work with this person, I will not work with this person. But the court has asked you to work with that person, right? If the court has asked you to work with a person, then you leave it to the court's judgment and wisdom. There must be some reason why the court has asked me to work with this person. Okay? So I'm not here to justify his or her behavior. I'm only here to understand his or her behavior because it is important for me to understand, because that will help me to make an assessment about whether this person is fit to be released back in the community. That is the crucial job that you have to do. You have the responsibility as a probation officer to make a judgment call on whether this person can be released back in the community, either on a bond of good behavior or on supervision, isn't it? That's your role as a probation officer. Now, in order to do that job well, If you do it in a very cursory manner, without having collected all the facts and situational reasons, you will end up doing a disservice to society and a disservice to the court. So the first part of your job is to collect as much information as possible from various sources. Also, this whole issue of manipulation of facts is depending on how many different sources you are able to reach out to. You will develop a balanced picture of the whole thing. So if you have spoken to the person, you have spoken to their family members, you maybe have spoken to one or two of the neighbors, you have spoken to the police officer also in that case, the investigation officer. If you want, you can do that as well. If possible, maybe talk to his employer. And after doing all that, you come to some kind of a balanced judgment about how one should go about it. Then the next part I would say is to do with how does one work with a person who has been released on probation. So the first part of the work is how do you do the assessment? And I've discussed a lot about that. Now we are talking about how do you work with a person who has been released on probation. Okay. Now, our understanding of the work that we have done with offender populations for the last 30 plus years through a field action project of TISS called Prayas tells us that there are 4 important factors which need to be looked at in the rehabilitation process. Okay, what are these 4 important factors? The first one is, does the person have some kind of stable shelter? It is very important for the person to have some kind of stable shelter. Okay, what do you mean by stable shelter? He goes to the same place every day to sleep. He has a roof over his or her head. He or she has a roof over their head. And it is a stable place. When they go to that place, they are accepted in that place. They are not asked to go. They are not asked to leave. Okay, a home, correct, a home. Some kind of a home. It need not be a family home. It could even be a shelter home. Could be a shelter home where the person is living currently and is being given admission to live there. Okay, so stable shelter is very important. Then the next important thing is some kind of stable relationship. Some relationship, at least one relationship, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a husband, a wife, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister-in-law, an uncle, an aunt, a friend, a good friend, some kind of a stable relationship, positive, stable relationship, for whom this person is important. You know, sometimes when we are living in very difficult circumstances, we feel if this one person is there for me, no, it's enough. I will deal with the rest of life. At least this one person is important for me. You know, there are so many people who give up crime because they care for a person. They care for their girlfriend or a boyfriend, or they care for their mother or father, or they care for their partner. Because of somebody, they say, okay, for you, I will change. Okay, so the importance of a stable relationship. Okay, well, they will need to go somewhere. No, if they are elderly and they don't have anybody, they should at least have a place where somebody is able to take care of them. The point that I'm trying to make is, in our life, look at your own life. No, when you talk about rehabilitation, just look at your own life. Can you live your life without any relationships? I mean, some people do live, but it's difficult for them, right? Right? Human beings are gregarious. They need people around them. They also need privacy. They also need individuality, but they also need some kind of company. You know, these are like the two legs. On one leg is your individuality. The other leg is your social support. Both you need. Okay. So therefore, when we are talking about this whole thing, what kind of stable relationships exist in the person's life? Okay. Then the third factor is a very obvious factor. Most people will first talk about that. I'm talking about this as a third factor, which is stable legal income source. Person needs some livelihood, right? Not just income, but livelihood, something that you feel proud of, something that you are busy, something that gives you identity, something that gives you social status, you know. So a livelihood, which is a legal source of income, is very important. And the fourth factor we have found is that your ability to stay away from addictions, substance abuse, whether it is alcohol or drugs, you know, or gambling or something else, some kind of an addictive lifestyle, if you are able to overcome. These four things have a bearing on the rehabilitation process. So when you are talking as a probation officer who is supervising a case, you will have to look at all these four factors. Does the person have a stable source of shelter? Does the person have a stable relationship? At least one. Does the person have some kind of stability of income? And does the person, is the person free from addictions? Now, depending on what answers you get, you will have to work on that factor. So a person may have a stable income, person may have stable shelter, person may even have a stable relationship, like a girlfriend or a mother or somebody, but the person is alcoholic. Do you think the rehab process will work? It won't work, because alcoholism will push that person back into losing the job, losing the relationships, etc., etc. So depending on which factor is creating a hurdle in the rehabilitation process, you will have to work at that level. So if the person has an addiction problem, you have to try and see whether the person can go for detox and rehabilitation. And if the person refuses, there's nothing much you can do in that matter. Because at the end of the day, this person is independent, they will do what they want to do. Right? If it is that the person does not have a stable relationship, there is nobody in that person's life, then you will have to probably help that person to develop some positive relationships in their life. Maybe you could connect the person with a local respected person in that area who agrees to take care of this person, meet that person once a week, have some positive relationship with that person. It could be an NGO with whom you connect the person, so that person goes to that NGO in the evening hours and maybe contributes to the work of the organization. You know, basically a sense of acceptance with somebody at least. Because without that sense of acceptance, it is very difficult to live one's life. Stable shelter, again, if the person doesn't have a stable shelter, no family support, etc., you'll have to find some place where the person can sleep the night. If not the day, at least the night. Is there a night shelter? Is there a shelter home, some institution where this person can go and live, or some paying guest accommodation, etc., etc. So basically saying that these are the four areas of work. One more point I want to make here is that the rehabilitation process should lead to a change of identity of the person. That means their identity of an ex-criminal, that has to change. People should not know this person as somebody who went to jail. People should know this person now as somebody who is doing something in life. Is a writer, is an artist, is an engineer, is a carpenter, is a local plumber. Some new different identity. And that creating that identity takes time. Okay? People have to reach a point where people forget the fact that this person ever went to jail. Sometimes it may even mean this, you have to change the residence of that place, because everybody in that area knows that this person went to jail. And every time this person tries to improve, somebody with the other will, taunt this person and, say that, he was a jailbird or she was a jailbird. And then that will demotivate that person. It will start affecting the lives of their children, because children will be taunted by saying your mother or your father was in jail. And that will again start affecting you. So it could even mean that you will have to find a place where the person changes their area of residence. Possible. But so change of identity is very important. And lastly, I would say that this person should reach a point where the criminal justice system should forget him or her. As long as the police and the justice system remember this person, he or she is always in danger of being rearrested for some offense or the other, sometimes on suspicion also. So he has to reach a point where the police forgets this person. The police does not see this person anymore as a threat. And that is where your role as a probation officer comes in again, to build a relationship with the police, to keep informing the police that this person is now doing this job. This person is now settled in life. This person has got married. This person has got children. So you have to change the perception in the mind of the police about the person. So I'll stop here. Also, time is already on nearly 1 hour that I was to take this class. So if you have any questions, you can ask me.
അങ്ങനെ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ നമുക്കിത് മനസ്സിലാവും. See, 80 Article 80 is what about the composition of the Council of composition of the